Someone that is making sure that, or is on her own wild ride, I guess is probably a good way of putting it, and making sure that people are on the ride with her, is the chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party, who's been with us before on a number of occasions. She's kind of my other road dog. Good morning, Anderson Clayton, and welcome back to Choose Views.
Good morning, Richard Chu. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's good to hear your voice. I know you're, like always, on the road, literally. I would check the miles in your pickup truck, and I would check your frequent flyer miles and all the other things, because you are always on the move. But that's what it takes right now. I mean, you have been one of the voices that's just said, listen, y'all, we need to get out here in all parts of North Carolina and frankly all parts of the country to let people know the Democrats are on the move. We're excited and we're putting the work in. Talk to us about what that's been like the last few weeks.
Well, we're on the way right now. We're going to Polk County today. We'll be in Rutherford County today. So thinking about western North Carolina counties that were hit by Hurricane Helene and also ravaged by that natural disaster, that we're trying to get a new member of Congress out here elected, Jamie Ager, who's the Democrat that's running against the former Republican nominee, Chuck Edwards, who, as everybody hopefully knows by now, is no longer running for that any longer, because even his own party said he needed to step away from that seat. And so we're trying to make sure we get out everywhere, because you can either talk about something or you can show up and you can actually be about something. And I think that right now people across this state and across this country really need people that are willing to show up, and that includes candidates and it includes the party as well. And so we're trying to make sure that we do that as best we can, but it means early mornings on the road and going through the hills and the hollers of western North Carolina right now.
Well, that's what it takes. I mean, I met a good friend of yours this weekend that we talked about that in terms of the Howard Dean strategy is what folks like you, Anderson, are doing in the state of North Carolina. And frankly, when you're talking with other Democratic chairs in different states, that's what it takes. That's what you guys have put together to say we got to go to every corner, every county, every district in our state to win back state legislative offices, and that be the foundation for us taking back and keeping, not just taking back Congress this time. And you and I talked about this when we were together in March. It's not just taking back these seats, it's keeping them. And it's keeping them by delivering, right?
Yeah, and talking about how and what Democrats have done. And I think that we saw, at least I saw a really good video of that recently with the mayor of New York actually bringing back up policies that have been instituted in New York for decades, but just making videos about it, making people aware of it, educating folks about what actually does government do well for you and what does it do right now that maybe you don't know about and that you've never had access to before just because someone hasn't told you about it. Because oftentimes they say that, too, about generational wealth and the way that it's accumulated, right? People who don't know about the ways in which to do that, to start a 401k, to match your 401k, to do all of the things that folks need to do in investing in the stock market. It's not something that people automatically know about. And I feel like that is the same thing that can be said for civic education, right? And the way in which that we've got to educate folks right now about this election cycle. And so I hope that each and every single person listening to this right now is getting involved, that you are doing something, whether that means that you're knocking on doors or you're making phone calls to get people out to the polls this year, whether you're saying, hey, I'll be the one that shuttles people to the polls this year, because it needs to be, as my vice president says, too big to rig this year in every way, shape, and form, too.
One of the things, knowing that having you on my little segment of something to chew on earlier in the show, is that talks about this, because I know how much energy you bring to the conversation, Anderson. Don't let anyone fool you into apathy. Is a phrase that I use this morning, and how to break through that, first of all, is to not believe the naysayers and to get with people like yourself and many others that you've recruited and built to such a strong team to make sure that the data's out there, that the numbers are out there. We're leading. We have a commanding lead right now when it comes to healthcare, entitlements, inflation, and cost of living in terms of the trust narrative that Democrats have over Republicans. And that's not just on a federal level. You know this as well as, if not better than most, that's on a state level as well. Talk about how voters, in your observation and in your experience, are trusting more of what Democrats are saying and getting done.
I mean, I I think that, like, to go to the point that you just made earlier, that it goes back to the representative that you have and also how hard that they are actively doing constituency services and working in their communities. You know, you met him when you came to North Carolina back in March, but Representative Dante Pittman is always somebody that I reference and I talk to when I think about that's a Democrat that's doing good work in North Carolina right now, but also just a public servant who's doing his job right now. And I think that everybody cares a lot about, you know, the values that you have and the values that you're going to fight for, but they really care about when they call your office, do they get an answer back? And is it responsive? And do they feel like that their elected official is in community and working on behalf of them instead of working for big corporations right now, like we see a lot of our politicians doing, and also Donald Trump with tariffs that are impacting, right, communities and small businesses across North Carolina. It doesn't bode well for the average person thinking that you're actually working for them. And I think that we've seen Democrats time and time again doing that across our state. I give a big shout out to my Attorney General right now, Jeff Jackson, who is out there single-handedly taking on Duke Energy and trying to make sure that Duke Energy is held accountable for the fact that they're asking for an 18% rate hike in North Carolina for an energy rate. And so if you are anywhere in the southeastern part of the country, Duke Energy also services you, and Jeff Jackson is fighting for your energy rates too, because people are looking at their power bills every single month and going, oh my God, how on earth could this be so much money? And we just actually had a family out of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, who was reported this last week that it was a family of 4 folks that were in a house that died because they did not have access to their energy company had cut off, or their utility company had cut off their power a week and a half before, and they all were found in the house dead. And I'm like, you cannot tell me right now that the average people or the average person doesn't understand what's going on and how high costs are and how much their elected officials are not doing something about it right now.
And the solution to that, to the opposition voice, is not, well, go find a job, work harder, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. When your power company raises the rates to the point where you can't afford to keep your power on, that's not a go find a job, go pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's a systemic problem. So kudos to the AG down there for the work because it doesn't just impact North Carolina, it impacts the region, as you just said. So thank you for reminding us of that.
Duke Energy is the largest energy monopoly in the southeastern part of the United States. It impacts the whole country, in my opinion, because when you can take on an energy monopoly in one area of the United States, you can do it in others. And that's what we're seeing right now across our country is corporate consolidation, and it's what's made prices skyrocket to the point where there's not competition. And it's why that we need elected officials right now who want to go up there and go up there to D.C., but not just to D.C., but to every state capital and take on monopolies right now that are making costs extremely high for the average constituent in America.
Yeah, you know, I understand we're going to take a little bit of a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about what's recently happened with Governor Stein and this veto and with regard to voting, and then a few other things that you, through your organization, are taking on with regard to Omnibus, 1,000 Days, the district run. But let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chu. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Anderson Clayton and Chu's Views. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to Chu's Views. If you are just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with North Carolina Democratic Party Chair Anderson Clayton. And some big news is taking place in North Carolina literally yesterday, today, with regard to voting and election bills. Talk to us, Anderson, about what the Republicans had been doing and what Governor Josh Stein said, oh, no, not on my watch.
Look, Republicans are always on something in North Carolina trying to disenfranchise voters across this state. Their recent effort was trying to pass House Bill 958, which was a voter suppression bill that would restrict the days of early voting in North Carolina. Right now, we've got 17 days of early voting. They wanted to limit that to 10. take away days of Sunday voting, which include, souls to the polls, thinking about the history of in black churches and in black communities going to church on Sundays and going to the voting booth afterwards. And that's something that historically our faith leaders have taken a huge role in our black communities across this entire country. But it's just restricting and targeting black and brown voters, and also trying to take away college campus voting sites as well, and restrict student voters on college campuses. And yesterday we got to go to the governor's mansion and we got to watch Governor Stein veto that bill to make sure that before the 2026 general election that we're not seeing Republican voter suppression efforts have even more impact in North Carolina than they already do right now, because we still have voter ID laws on the books in this state, and we still have Republicans that have done everything they can to restrict access to polling sites across North Carolina too.
What impact have the Republicans had on relief, the hurricane relief, and the natural disaster relief there in the state? I know that federal dollars are a part of this, but what have Republicans done to essentially block or affect that not happening in a way? Because this is an ongoing story. Talk to us about that, Anderson.
I mean, the fact is, it's been 2 years since Hurricane Helene happened, and we're still less than 15% of federal funds have been released to Western North Carolina. You still have people that are living in tents and trailers, and also have been displaced from their houses still and can't go back to them because they haven't gotten federal help. And when you've got a Republican president who promised that he came to Western North Carolina, sat in Swannanoa, and made the promise to people across the state that he was going to help Western North Carolina, and you've also got the lack of leadership again from people like Chuck Edwards, and whoever Republicans put up to replace him in that sense too will not, I think, have an administration that is going to help support them, because they have not already. And that just goes to show you, places like Appalachia and rural America that they claim to care about, Republicans don't give a damn about, and they never have, to be honest with you.
Well, and that's part of the problem when we talk about state legislatures. And I've said this for so long, and I know you know this as a chair, but, the states having the right people in our state legislative offices is so critically important, because when the federal government doesn't do what they're supposed to do, particularly now under this Trump administration, Anderson, the state legislators, if we have the right people in place, at least we can get things through. We can at least allocate funds and release monies that are there, so that when there's a disaster like this, that things can get done. But the Republicans have continued to block. Not only was the budget an issue, but now we've got this with regard to hurricane relief. And they're going after rural voting by blocking where people can go to vote and how votes can be thrown out. So when we control stuff, we get stuff done. It's just those.
You also have to have a legislature, though, there, Richard, too, that has a rainy day fund or something like that. And I'll be honest with you, my Republican legislature has been so fiscally irresponsible with their money over the last decade and a half that they've been in charge of this state, because they have been giving away money to private school vouchers in the state of North Carolina. We have the most unaccountable out of the entire country. North Carolina is ranked #1 for how unaccountable our private school voucher program is, because it does not matter how much money you make in the state of North Carolina. You could be a quadrillionaire. It doesn't matter. If you wanted to get $7,000 to send your kid to a private school in this state, you absolutely could. And the state legislature has made that fund for private school vouchers so large that they couldn't, if they wanted to, help people in Western North Carolina like they needed to, because instead they're too busy, again, padding the pockets of the people that have put them in office, which, again, it tends to be corporations and people who don't want to pay their fair share in taxes in the state of North Carolina right now.
It's true.
Lord.
And it's true throughout other states in the country where Republicans are in control. That same, and I know you've visited a number of states in addition to your work there in North Carolina, but that's also one of the problems that we're seeing in red states. And the voters, I don't want to say that they don't get it, but they don't seem to be willing to vote against it because they get caught up in the cultural issues rather than the economic issues, which they say matter more. But at the end of the day, that doesn't seem to be the case. What you're doing to reset the narrative, though, is going out and like you said earlier, making sure people are aware of the fact that the Republicans aren't getting things done. Anderson, talk a little bit about your omnibus, momnibus, 1,000 days. I mean, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but you got some stuff going on down there. Talk about omnibus for a moment.
We've got everything going on in North Carolina right now. Like I said, we're going out to do a district tour. I'm with Lakeisha Womack today out in Polk County because we want to make sure, to your point, that we are getting all over and across North Carolina, because I think that the way in which that we defeat Republican propaganda that they have put out into these communities for so long is that we actually show up in them and show them what a Democrat actually stands for. Because a lot of Republicans, whether that be the state legislators or also the members of Congress that represent these districts, have not been out to these districts. And it is because of the fact that states like North Carolina and also every single one in the South has been gerrymandered to obliteration, right, by Republicans who are so scared of voters that they don't know what to do. And that's exactly what we heard yesterday when we had Governor Stein veto that bill from our House Minority Leader, Robert Reeves, talking about how, when the Voting Rights Bill came down, or the Voting Rights Act, and Republicans gutted the Voting Rights Act in Congress this last year, North Carolina did not go through a whole wave of redistricting again like every other southern state did, because we had already been through it. And I just think that for so long, people have kept their eyes off the South, and I'm hoping that people are waking up to realizing how important this region of the country is. And I know at least my state is, because I feel it where I am in, whether I'm in Burt County or Bladen County or Beaufort County. And it's been across the state, we are energized and we're excited because we know that we've got to send a U.S. Senator to Congress this year with Roy Cooper, and also make sure that we keep Justice Anita Earls on the North Carolina State Supreme Court in every way, shape, and form, too.
Without a doubt. And you committed to Democrats and really you committed to everybody in the state, but primarily Democrats, to have a 100 county strategy, speaking of counties. And that's goes, again, it harkens back to what Howard Dean had in his mind years ago with a true 50-state strategy. You're leaving no stone unturned, and you're making it clear that you want to have a Democrat on every ballot in every single district. Talk a little bit about that.
I think it's important. We saw it across the state or across the country this year, too, in places like Idaho, South Carolina, places that also filled every single one of their state legislative races on the ballot, because Democrats are tired, sick and tired, I think, of being in states where they go to the ballot box and they don't have somebody to vote for. And it harms, right, our ability to tell voters that we're fighting for them when they don't see us doing it. And I heard somebody talk about it earlier. His name is Carlos Eduardo Espina. He's actually like a famous TikToker, at least in that sense. He's got like 14 million followers on there. And he said, there's a way to lose, right? And people actually, he said, when you're playing a sports game, like there's a difference in the World Cup and losing, 3-0 and going into overtime and battling it out in a way that, your fans are proud to see. And I heard him say that, and I compared it back to politics. Sounds like, yeah, like people really do want to see Democrats go a second and a third round, even if they get knocked down. But like, it is about how much we get back up and we fight. And to me, I think a lot of times voters, especially in these rural areas, have not seen Democrats fight for them in any way, shape, or form. When we don't run people for elected offices there, when we don't show up to their city councils and their county commissioner meetings and talk about data centers and flock cameras and things that are bipartisan issues right now, but that are really big in these communities and that people want to hear elevated up, right? They don't just want to see it sit at the ground level. And I think that we've got really good local and state Democratic elected officials in North Carolina doing that, but I also think we've got it across the country too.
It's interesting, Anderson, in that point. It's about, when I think about representation, and you understand that as a strong, smart, vibrant, energetic woman that understands representation as a woman. I can speak to it as an African-American male. But even for voters, seeing Democrats run is another form of representation, knowing that we've got folks in the race, in the fight, even if we don't win. Such a great point that you made, and it's a nuanced point, but a lot of times people don't see it or get that part of, even if we don't win, we run to let voters know we're fighting for you. So come out with this next time. And we don't get it this time, come back next time. But if we don't have anybody on the ballot, they're like, well, why should I vote in the first place? So that's such great vision and leadership on your part, which leads me to our last question. We know that Roy Cooper is doing well. We know Democrats are doing well all over the country, and we don't take it lightly. We don't rest on our laurels. But the word is from people that I talk to, and I'll let you say something to this real briefly, about you being our next national DNC chair. That's out there. I know I probably made you blush a little bit, but your energy and your passion is definitely on the tips of the tongues of a lot of people. So I want to congratulate you on what folks are saying about you in that space, Anderson. You're doing a great job.
Oh Lord, I'm focused on North Carolina. We got a Supreme Court to flip in every way, shape, and form, and hopefully, when we do what we need to do down here, it's going to really help the nation and give a lot of power back. So we're excited about it, and thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that in terms of the national your national appeal is it really is what you just said, though, in response to that. You're focused on getting things done there. Let's get this in place. Let's get this locked down. And then we build out from there. And you're doing that, and so many other state chairs are doing the same kind of work. So we're proud of what you're doing, and keep up that work. Anderson, good to have you on again. Real quickly, how can folks find you? How can folks get involved with the work that you're doing, not just in North Carolina, but for the country at large?
Look, go to ncdp.org and get involved today. If you were listening out of Warren County or anywhere in North Carolina, and even if you're not, if you're across the country right now, we'd love to have you involved. There are virtual ways to sign up to phone bank and to even come into the state if you'd like to. And so just sign up online, ncdp.org, or also follow us on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else that you may like to at NC Party. So thanks, y'all. Thanks, Richard, too.
All right. Thanks, Anderson Clayton. Be well. Drive carefully. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.